Hello friends, and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be going over how to integrate Emerald AI with VR Interaction Framework, so you can give and take damage and have enemies. In this one I'm going to be going over the basics of it. If I've got time, I'll go into in this one I'll go over how to ragdoll and do location-based damage. But I'm going to segue out of this one into another video where I'm going to integrate Puppet Master with this so that you guys can have the Puppet Master factor along with your enemies. If you're interested in that, stay tuned. Okay, so I'm in Unity and I'm just in an empty scene with an XR rig, and you're going to need a couple of things. So go up to your package manager. I've already imported these, but I'm going to show you what they are. I'm going to be using this zombie. He's a free asset on the asset store as my enemy. He looks like this. So go ahead and download him and import him into your project. And then you'll need Emerald AI, obviously, because that's what this video is about. Emerald AI is on 3.0, so just go ahead and import that. Once you get that far, let's go down to, you'll have these two folders. You'll have Emerald AI and you'll have Zombie. So go into your BNG framework, go into integrations, and then go over to Emerald AI. Double click this, and then you're going to import it. And all this is it's just a direct import for a script that will allow raycast weapons to damage Emerald AI. That's all the integration is. It's just a script. Anyway, so let's go back to assets. Once you've done that, go into your zombie folder and go into prefabs, and we're going to use zombie 1. These other two actually have removable body parts. I think the first one might too, but I'm not going to get into that on this. This is about giving and taking damage for the most part and just getting a basic setup of Emerald AI. See if he does. I can't remember. Yeah, he does. He has separated body parts. So if you wanted to go further with this, you could actually make this to where you could cut his arm off and stuff like that. But anyway, click on zombie, and then go ahead and right click him, and then unpack. And then once you have Emerald AI imported, if you go up to window, you've got this little thing here called Emerald AI. And let's go to the setup manager, and then we're going to take zombie, and we're going to slap him in there, AI object, tag for the AI. We're going to add a tag, and we're going to call him, we're going to put him on the AI tag. Save. And just select AI. A layer for the AI. We're going to add a layer. Come to layers, and then just add a layer. AI. Yeah, and then a layer, we'll call it AI. Notice you can't use default. Behavior that will be applied. So here's where you would select what kind of behavior you want. Do you want them to be aggressive, passive, cautious? Do you want it to be a companion? Do you want it something that runs around with you? Do you want it to be a pet? For this, we're going to do aggressive because I want this guy to attack me. Confidence. You can select if he's a coward, if he runs away easy, or if he's brave, or foolhardy is what I want. So I want him to be really aggressive. I don't want him to not care if he gets killed. So that's what I'm going to do, foolhardy. AI's wonder type. We're going to use a Nav Mesh for this, so I want dynamic. You could also do waypoints, or you could make a stationary where they're just like behind a counter or something, just looking around and whatever, or you could send them to a destination, but we want him wandering around, and then we run into him, he'll attack us. Auto optimize, just leave this as a yes. Weapon type for this AI, we're just going to do melee because he doesn't have a gun. I'm not going to go into the guns. Once we set this up, you'll be able to use the Emerald AI tutorials on YouTube to set up any kind of AI that you want. But this is just to show you how to get it working with VR Interaction Framework and the XR rig. Death type, we're not going to ragdoll unless I get to the end. We can change this, but right now we're going to leave it at animation. That way we're covering everything, and he's going to be Nav Mesh driven. Then you just click Setup AI. Setup. Okay. Then you can close this. Now if you click on zombie, you see it set up our guy with our Emerald AI system, and we've got to do some stuff. Excuse me. And we got to do some stuff. So If you look here, we've got our temperament, the stuff that we've already set up. Water type, all this stuff is automatically set up for us. You don't really have to do anything here. If you go to AI settings, there's one thing that you're going to have to change, and I always forget where it's at. Takes me a minute to find it. Okay, we haven't hit that yet. But we'll get to it. There's something you got to change so that it'll actually see the raycast hits, which is where a lot of people miss it. Basically on our stats, we can do our name. So I think we could just say, I think in my video I called him Zombie Man. And then his title, I called him Bringer of Death. But this is where you could like name him. You know, it's a little thing that pops up over top of him. If you want to use that, you don't have to use it. If you wanted to give it a level, if you wanted to assign it a level, we'll leave him a level 1. His health, I don't know. We'll give him health at 25. Do you want it to regenerate health? So if he comes out of attack mode, does he regenerate his health or not? This is where you would do that. So now let's click on movement. We're not gonna change a lot in here until after we get our stuff set up. But this is how you can control how fast he walks, things like that. Combat, our damage settings. Melee attack distances, how close he'll be to you when he stops and starts attacking. This is just a bunch of stuff that you can look at. You can change all kinds of stuff. The one thing I don't like about Emerald is they suffer from a Microsoft complex, I call it, is where they wanted to give you so much access to every aspect of what you could possibly do that they overcomplicated it. So for beginners, this can be very daunting. But there's tutorials on this stuff, and they have a really good wiki that you can cover to figure out what all this stuff does. Combat actions. It's just if you want to use blocking, just go through and read this stuff. I don't, for the sake of this video, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. Death type, right here's where you can change it from animation to ragdoll. So if I got time, I'll ragdoll this thing, and I'll show you how that works, and then we'll go into location-based damage. Otherwise, I'll make it another video. Nav Mesh. This is all your Nav Mesh settings, which we're going to. I'll go over that. We need to make a Nav Mesh still. Optimizations, events, we're going to use this. I actually wrote a script for this to get you started on death events so that you can actually restart the scene and have haptics every time you get hit and stuff like that. So I went and wrote a script for that I'm going to cover in this that will get you started with the events. If you click on combat, these are combat events. You can set off events in code of things you want to happen. Right here on kill target on death event, we're going to use this one, you know, or something happens if you had an AI fighting another AI, that would be this. Items, this is where you could assign items to be dropped. So if you killed them and you wanted them to drop a health pack or money or something, this is where you would put that prefab so that it would spawn it on his death. Detection and tags, this is where we're going to get into some stuff. Oh, let's see. Get this out of my way. One thing about this is if you miss one little thing, it doesn't work. So obstruction, ignore layers. This is what I was talking about. It says ignore raycast. Well, if he's ignoring raycast, well, then you can't hit him with a gun. You can't shoot him with a raycast gun. So we need to just switch that to nothing. It even tells you can switch it to nothing. The layers that should be ignored when an AI is using obstruction detection for attacking with melee or ranged attacks. These are objects that may prevent an AI from seeing the player or target object. So if he's on the other side of the wall, so if you had a wall layer, he wouldn't be able to see you. I guess is what that is. Usually I just have these guys out in open areas. But anyway, moving on. He can set his detection quality. How good is he at doing his job? That stuff's all in here. Head transform. Just hit auto find. It'll automatically find his head transform. So if you're using look at, or and he also needs this so that he can see the player. So just hit auto find. It'll find the head transform for you. Tags and faction options. Here we got to do some stuff. Emerald Unity tag. So where am I at? Tags and factions. Okay, so we want him to be AI. And his detection layers, for the sake of this, we're going to say we need to add player. We need to add player because he needs to be able to detect the player, and our player's on the player. You'll see. So water, player, and where did I set this one to? default, just so we don't miss anything. Follow tag. This is only if you got a companion, so this doesn't really matter. You know, if you had, I don't know, a robot or something that follows you around and helps you kill things, that's what you would need. You would need this tag so he knows who to follow. The only thing I don't like about the follow tag is he can't actually avoid things. So let's say if you had a rigid body car in the way or something, he would just run smack into it. I hope they actually fix that, but for right now, it'll even tell you somewhere in here that it doesn't support that, which I find to be very odd. You can't walk around things. But anyway, moving on. Faction options. You actually have to assign factions. So before we go there, not a tag, yeah. No, okay, so set it up exactly like that. And then we're going to go to faction options. What faction is he part of? Well, I don't know. We'll say he's an NPC because that's what he is. Player, well, how does he see the player? Well, the player is an enemy. And then he needs an AI faction relation. So we'll just say he's an NPC and they're neutral. So it's actually going to require this. If you don't set this up, it'll tell you at the top and it'll actually throw up an error. So make sure you set that. Let's go to look at options. Do you want it to look at us? I'm going to come back to this if I remember to, because there's something you have to do to your XR rig. And if you don't want to use look at, I don't want to get into that yet. But moving on, before we go to UI settings, let's go to let's not worry about sounds yet. Sounds is where you could assign things like footstep sounds and things like that. Waypoint Editor, we're not going to get into that, but you could have this guy be Waypoint instead of Nav Mesh, and then you could set transforms and he could walk in between the two. Animations. Okay, if you go into zombie, go into animations. Let's click on our zombie and come up here and lock it. That way when we switch these around, this isn't disappearing. Idle animation. You don't want to use these. This is the ones, if you put these in there, sometimes they won't work and he'll be in the ground trying to do something. If you hit play and this guy falls into the ground with his hands up in the air and his knees are all cockeyed and he's halfway in the ground, that means your animation isn't working correctly. Don't use these. You're going to want to use the ones that are actually in the span out of the animation. Let's see, which one is idle? Finding them sometimes until you get an idea of where they're at. There he is. Okay, so idle. Slap him in there. And then you want to slap him in here and slap him in here. He doesn't have a lot of options for his animations, but that's okay. If you had more, you could have 3 different idles. Here you could set 3 or 4 up to 6 idle animations, and it'll just randomly pick the idle animation that it plays when he stops. So you could have up to 6 of them in here, and it would just randomly pick one. For that, we're just going to do that. No, we don't need a warning. We're not going to do an animation profile. Movement. Non-combat movement. Let's find his walk. Let's collapse this down. And I think he has 3 walks. There's run. Walk. Which one is this? And you can actually see which one it is by looking at the photo. So we'll just use this. I'm probably just going to use the same one for all of these. But obviously if you had one that was actually walk left and walk right, you could use that one instead. Go ahead and use mirror. Then run animation. Let's see. Run in place. Run. Okay, so we need our run animation. Turn left. I think he has turn animation, so maybe he does. Look up here at the top. Does he have turn? No, he doesn't have turn. I think he has a run in place, and I think he has a walk in place. So let's find his walk in place. Is it this one? Yep, walk in place. So for his turn animations, I'm just going to use walk in place for the sake of this. Obviously, if you had dedicated turn animations, you could. And you can control the speed of the turns. Okay, so once you got that, click on combat movement and then just copy them over unless you have specific combat movement. If you had like combat walk, you would want to put those in there, but for this, you can just copy them all over. It'll fill them in for you. And then you can come through and you can mirror. Let me click back over on non-combat. Nope, I didn't have that checked. Mirror. Okay. So if you look at what mirroring is, it says mirroring an animation allows you to play an animation in the opposite direction. So if it randomly decides that it needs to play in the opposite direction, it can. Better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it, I always say. Okay, we're all filled out there. So now let's go up to combat. At the very top, attack animations. Before we get into this, let's find his attack. We're going to make an attack event. You want to create the event before you assign it. So let's collapse this down. I think it's the first one. Attack event. So let's go ahead and unlock this and go ahead and save it. Always save your work often in case something happens. But right, just double click on it and click edit. Okay, come down. Down here where it says events. Okay, so if you grab, here, I want to show you something. Let's go to zombie real quick. If you go into your prefabs, I should have locked that. Oh. Go back in animations. Okay. If you lock this so that it doesn't go away, go back to your zombie asset, go into prefabs. Take your zombie and drop him in there. Now we can see our zombie and what he looks like. And then you're just going to pull this over to where it should register an attack. So about right there is probably pretty good. Guess I had to unlock it to get to that. Let's do that again. Pull that. No, don't play. Pull it in about to where you think attack should be. And then on events, click this little plus sign looking thing here. And then we're going to say we want to call this Emerald AI Attack Event. Has to be exactly like that. Click apply. And then fast forward along. And I put 2 attacks on him because he's got 2 arms. And grab another one about right there. And we're going to add another one. We're going to call it the same thing. Oops. Wow, that was still copied. Emerald AI Attack Event. Apply. So now we've assigned 2 attack events to this animation. So if you ever wondered what that means, that's what it means. We have to add an event to the animation. So now we can come back to our zombie. Come back down to his combat and see his animation for attack animations. Let's go over to, go back into zombie because I clicked off of it on accident. Go into animations. Back on our zombie guy, and let's go and lock him again. That way we can click around. Find our attack that we just assigned our events to. Slap him in there. He's only got 1 attack, but if you had multiples, you could add one, add another one. Run attacks, now we won't worry about that. If they wanted a running attack, you could assign that here. Hit animations, I think he's got one, so yeah, we'll use those. Combat hit animation. Controls the animation that will randomly play when the AI receives damage when in combat. Okay. And hit animations. Okay, so we're going to use the same one. So this one is if he's not in combat and you just run up and hit him, what happens? And this is what happens if he's in combat and you hit him. So I think he's got a fall backwards and a fall forwards. Falling back. So take that and drop that in there. And plus, and I think he's got a falling forward too. Yeah, falling forward. Okay, so we'll just put the same ones in here. So falling backwards and falling forwards. I don't need that. Let's see. Emotes. These are actually pretty cool. You can actually trigger through code different animations, and it takes an integer 1 through 10, I think is what it is. You can have up to 10. Yeah, 10. So if you wanted to like make him dance, you could, click a button in code and make him stop what he's doing and just dance. You could all assign that there. Let's see. Did I get all of them? There's one more place that we have to assign attack animation. But before we do that, click Create Animator Controller. And this is a takeover controller. Emerald AI is going to write a animation controller for us. So we'll call this Emerald Zombie Override Controller. And where do we want to put them? I don't know. We'll put them in the folder with zombie so we know where it's at. Hit save. So now if you go to your animator, if you scroll down, where the heck is it? Animator, right here. You can see that it's already overridden our animation. So now every time we go back, if we change an animation, you have to refresh the animator. So if I wanted to change an animation, say I wasn't happy with one of them, then I would have to hit the refresh so that it changes my animation controller. All right, death animation. Oh, where's it at? I don't remember if he has an actual death. Okay, so we'll just use our falling. So we'll use our falling forward and our falling backwards. So falling forward or backwards and then falling forward. That way it randomly picks which way he goes. Then, like I said, when you add one, hit refresh animator controller. And apply to this AI. Please ensure so if you've missed something, it's going to tell you up here. At least one melee attack applied to one of the melee attacks list. This can be found under AI settings, combat, damage settings. Okay. AI settings, combat, damage settings. Okay, so if we come to the bottom, it needs a melee attack, which is going to be our attack animation. So, yeah, it already assigned it for us. So, need that in there. So as soon as the red's gone, we're good to go. And save. So now we need to make a nav mesh. So you can go ahead and unlock this. Click on here and go to Window, and then go down to AI, go to Navigation. Object, let's see. And yeah, I think that's right. See what happens. That big? I don't think it did. Oh, that's why. Navigation static. Okay, so now what else do we have? Attack 1 is missing on the Emerald AI attack event. Please see Emerald AI attack. It is. Let's see. Go over to our inspector. Animations. Hold on a second. Okay, for some reason it didn't take my events. So go ahead and come back into your, we'll click on it again. If you click on animation and then click edit, then come back down and click, before we do that, let's just, like we did before, scroll them into where we think our attack's going to be, about right there. And Emerald AI attack event. Apply. And then scrolling back over, Emerald AI attack event, and then plus Emerald AI attack event. Apply. Now, did I do that? Oh, I was playing that whole time. See if it actually took. I don't have anything on my play right now. It'll probably give me an error. Let's roll with that. If I need to correct it, I will. So anyway, add your events. And now come over to our player controller. Scroll down. Add component. And then we're going to need Emerald AI player health. Or player health. Okay. This is where we can set the health of our player. So let's see what happens now. Okay, I named my events wrong. Took me a minute to figure that out. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you go to your attack again, click on there and then click edit. And if you come down here to your events, and any event that we have, that'll have this little white slash. So just go ahead and delete it. I accidentally named them Emerald AI. So bring it down to about where you need it to be. And then click the little plus sign. And it's actually Emerald attack event, not AI event, just Emerald attack event. And then we can just copy that and hit apply, and then bring it forward to where the other hand comes down, and then we'll add another event and we'll name it the same thing. Said it's got to be exactly right or it won't work. Okay, so now let's click on zombie and then click on your AI settings, and then click on combat, and then click on damage settings. And then if you come down to the bottom underneath our melee attacks, where we assign our attack, we want to assign how much damage that we want him to do to our player. So what's the minimum damage we want him to do every time he hits? Let's say 5, and then the max will say 10. So now it'll randomly pick a number between 5 and 10, and that's how much damage it will do to us. Okay, so now let's click on our player controller. Come down to the bottom. I can't remember if I already added this in the video or not, but you need to add Emerald AI player health and then give us our current health. I think I already added it and it's already on the video, but 100. So now when you hit play and you watch this number, when he comes in, you should see this come down when he starts attacking. See how we're dropping health? It should go all the way down to 0, and then once it goes to 0, he'll leave us alone because we'll be dead at that point. Okay, and then he stops attacking. Okay, so he can kill us. Let's make it to where we can kill him. So if you go to zombie, and then we're going to add a component, Emerald AI damageable. This is our BNG script. Now the only thing this does is it just overrides our damageable, so we can hit it with a raycast. And then it's going to pass the values that we hit it with into the Emerald AI damageable, and then pass that to our Emerald AI system so that we can actually shoot this guy. So now we need a weapon. So let's go over to our BNG prefabs. So framework, prefabs, weapons, and let's grab a rifle, I guess. Sure. Guess I need to be in scene. Grab a rifle. We'll put it right there, and we'll pull it up, and we can get clips from our belt. So if you come to your rifle, the last thing we got to do is we got to make sure that our raycast can see our zombie. So if you come down to the raycast weapon script, you can see valid layers, raycast options. We want to hit AI. That way it can actually hit our AI. So that should allow us to kill him. Give me a second to make sure I didn't miss anything, and then we'll check it out in VR. Okay, so we do have to do 2 more things. Up here on the layer, if you click on zombie, for some reason it's not switching us to the AI layer. So you put it on UI. We need it to be on AI. Yes, change children. So our layer needs to be the AI layer. That's where we want this dude to be. That's what our weapon is going to be looking for. Another thing that Emerald does that I don't really understand, if you come down to the box collider, which is, I moved it already, but for some reason it'll be about this big. So you need to change that. If you're just using a single collider for damage, just bring it out like this. You know, make it to where you can hit them. You know, maybe you only want them to get hit in the chest, who knows. But for this, we're going to use this. So now we'll jump into VR and we'll check it out. Okay, so now he's animated. He can see us. He'll attack us. He can kill us, and we can kill him. So now let's bring in the script that I wrote to put all this together. So I go over to Assets, right-click, create a new C# script, and we'll call this My AI Death Events. Sure. Okay, right up here at the top, you're going to need a couple of things. We're going to need using BNG, we're going to need using emeraldai.example, and we're going to need using unityengine.scene management. And I'm going to copy paste this whole thing, but I'll go over and show you what I'm doing. This is just a basic script to give you some kind of feedback that stuff is going on. So at the top, we're gonna use our screen fader. So what I've done is I've made it so where every time he hits us, it's going to fade our screen and then fade back in. That way, it kind of gives that effect. You could also trigger something like a blood effect around your screen. We're going to need our player health, so that when we reset our scene to where I start at the beginning, it's going to reset our health back to whatever we set it to be. Right grabber and left grabber, we're going to need these because I've set it to where every time we get hit, it gives us haptic feedback, and you can set the frequency, the amplitude, and duration of that feedback in your controllers every time we get hit in the inspector. On start, it's going to get our health component, which is our player health. That's what's taking damage. Public void screen fade damage. So if current health is greater than 0, start creatine got hit. So every time we get hit, if it's greater than 0, then it's going to run got hit. If you come down to got hit, you see that it's going to give us vibration in our hands using input bridge.instance.vibrate controller. So both hands will vibrate every time we get hit. Screen will fade out. Do fade in means that the screen is going to fade to black, and then fade out means we're going to get our vision back. So you're going to have a slight pause. So however long you want that pause to be, that's right here. So we get hit, it fades to black, and then it fades back out. So every time we get hit, it's going to run that. On death, we're going to assign this to our events so that when we die, if we're holding a gun, it's going to drop it. It's going to disable our character controller so we can't move, and then it's going to run player reset. So if you come down to player reset, you can see that it's going to start creatine got hit. It's going to screen fade, do fade in. Why is it running that? Oh, stop creatine. So I'm going to run a stop creatine so that if it's halfway through this, when we die, it'll stop this creatine so it doesn't continue to run. And I did that because the screen faders were messing with each other. So where we're at in this is just going to stop it as soon as it runs this and we die. Screen fade, do fade in. So it's going to fade to black, and then it's going to wait for 3 seconds, and then it's going to reload our current scene. That's what this does. So this is just some simple stuff to show you how this works. Okay, whew, a lot of talking. Okay, so back into Unity. Okay, so now let's click on our player controller. And then we'll slap this on here on our player controller, and it's not going to give it to me because that's just what Unity keeps doing to me. So let me just do a quick edit. If you ever have it not show you your public fields when you do that, just throw in a little comment or something so that it reloads the scripts. And it gave it to me. So we need our screen fader. That's on our center eye camera. So just take your center eye anchor and just slap it on there, and it'll find the screen fader. These are right and left grabbers, so we can do haptics. If you expand your controllers out, you'll find your left grabber. And we need our right grabber. Okay, and this is where you can set your vibration frequency, amplitude, and duration. So every time we get hit, how hard it makes our controllers and how long it makes them vibrate. I'm just going to leave them at default. Okay, so now right above it, you can see we've got Emerald AI player health, and we got a damage event, and we've got a death event. So let's add a death event, and then grab our script and put it in there. And then we're going to come to my AI death events, and then we'll say on death, or not on death, we want on damage, sorry. So we need, what did I call that? Screen fade damage. So every time we get hit, it's going to run screen fade damage. And then a death event, let's add one there. Same thing, just pull our script in there. And then we're going to do a death event, and then we're going to say on death. This is what's going to restart our scene and make us dead. So let's hit play and see what happens. I shouldn't even need to put my headset on for this. I'm really tall right now. Okay, you can see my screen fades every time he attacks. When my health gets to 0, it should restart the scene. It fades completely to black, and the scene restarts. Just check it out. Let's check our player controller. Yep, he killed us. And now our scene restarts. Let me do it one more time. Health goes to 0, and the scene restarts. Okay, so now let's say that you want this guy to be location-based damage. So I'm going to introduce you to a really nice asset that I like. So if you go to, you'll have to get this from the Unity asset store, but it's called Ragdoll. Now, I will point out that if you are going to follow the following tutorials, the new tutorials, the tutorials coming after this with Puppet Master, this is where you want to stop. You want to leave this guy exactly the way he is, because we're going to be using Puppet Master to turn him into a ragdoll. And a matter of fact, what we can do is I can just take the zombie and I can duplicate him, and then our original will use him, and then this one we'll just disable him. That way we've got 2 copies of this guy. So if you want to do that, you can, and then you can continue on. But keep 1 copy if you're planning on doing the Puppet Master stuff. So let's click on them. And again, like I was saying, if you go to your package manager, you'll have to get this from the asset store. It's called Ragdoll Helper. It's a free asset, and it's pretty awesome. So just go ahead and download that and import it into your project. Import. And once you've got that imported, if you go to, I can't remember where it's at. Let's click on my zombie. Yeah, BZ Soft, click Ragdoll Helper, and you just leave it as is and just hit create. Now if I hit my gizmos, you can see I now have a ragdoll. It's a lot easier than going up and adding your bones one at a time with Unity's built-in stuff. So once we have that, if you go to your zombie, click on your box collider here. You have to have this. Emerald AI has to have this, but we don't want it to be in our way. So what we're going to do is we're going to shrink it down, and we're not even going to be using it anymore. So just make them small and out of the way. That way we're not colliding into it. So we just have to deal with these colliders. So come down here and remove the Emerald AI damage. We'll just remove the component, and then add component, and we want location based damage. This is an Emerald AI script. So once we have that, get colliders. This is going to automatically put all our colliders in from our ragdoll. Okay. So now for each one of these colliders, so let's go find them. If you open up your zombie and you go into, see, it's going to have one on the head. I know that. Oops. Nope, wrong spot. Expand it out. Come down to spine. We need the bones from neck. Let's go to his head. You can see it's already set up the ragdoll for us, and it's already got colliders. So let's hit add component, and we're going to click Emerald AI damageable. So now our main is looking for damage to each one of these colliders. So each collider that you want to be able to take damage from, so I'm just going to do 2 for now. So we'll do a headshot. So it needs our Emerald AI damage, and then we'll do our spine 1. No, is it spine 2? Yeah, spine 2. So we can hit him in the head and we can hit him in the chest. So Emerald AI damageable. Okay, so now if you come back to your main and you come down here, these are multipliers. So if my gun is shooting at 25 damage, 1 means that when I hit this collider, it's going to do 25 damage. So it's a multiplier. So if I wanted to do a headshot, that was a kill shot. So let's find our head. Oh, where's it at? Head, where are you? Arm, head. Multiplier. So he has 100 hit points. So if I wanted this to be a kill shot, I would put 4 here. 4 times 25 is 100. So now when I shoot him in the head 1 time, if it's a perfect shot, he'll die. Spine 2. So if we come through here and we find spine 2, well, a chest shot, what do I want that to be worth? Maybe I want that to be worth 50. So that'd be 2. So it's whatever my gun's damage is. So if I set it to 25, this is a multiplier. So this is going to do 50 damage. This is going to do 100 damage. And to test that out, let's go to our zombie, and let's come up to our, we're going to change a couple things since now we're in ragdoll mode. If you go to your AI stats, and instead of him having 25 health, I thought I made it 100, but I guess not. Let's give him 200. And let's go to, oh, where's it at? We need to change his combat. Is it in here? I'm trying to remember. Okay, it's under AI settings, combat actions. If you come down, now that we're using Ragdoll, we can change this to Ragdoll. And then if you want to retag your Ragdoll to a different layer, once it's Ragdolled, you can, but it's not necessary. So I'm just going to leave it as untagged. Okay, now let's say you want a health bar on top of this guy. If you go to UI settings, we're going to use our main camera. UI tag is player, UI layers. We're not going to worry about that. Display the AI name. Sure, we want it to show the name. And this will ask you where. If you want to do a custom font, no, we'll just leave it the way it is, the color, all that stuff. Do we want to display the title? Sure, we'll just leave it at default. You can come in here and change all this stuff, the color and all those things. Auto create health bar. So if you want to have a health bar, you can tell it yes. Now you will notice in the console that there is a canvas name combat text canvas with a render mode screen space overlay is being used. VR. So we're going to change something. So if we go into our project and we go into Emerald AI, into the resources folder, combat text canvas, I believe is the one we need to change. Yep. So if you double click that and you just bring up the prefab, you can see where it says screen space. Switch that to world space. Now we won't get that error anymore. So now hit file, save, and then we can go ahead and come out of here and then hit play and see if that error goes away. And there it is. And let's check one more thing. Okay, so click back on your zombie and then come over to UI settings, then come down to UI layers. This can't be nothing, so we're going to set this to player. The UI layers controls what layers this AI will detect to enable their UI. If the object also has the appropriate UI tag, this is typically used for players. So if it detects the players, the thing should pop up. Okay, so another thing you can do that I noticed when I checked it to make sure that everything was working, we can display the title. So we can do the title and level. So do you want his level 1, level 2, level 3? So we'll go ahead and leave that enabled. That was set up in his stats. So if you go over to his AI settings and go to stats, that's where his level is. So if you want to change his name and stuff, it's asking us if we want to show this stuff above the guy. And we got a health bar set up. So let's see if that's all working now. Should see it popped up. He saw us. We got Zombie Man, Bringer of Death. Here's our hit bar, and he is a level 1. So let's jump in VR and make sure everything works. Okay, we'll let him kill us first. Okay, screen fades out to black, and the scenery starts. I shoot him in the chest, I shoot him in the head. Headshot. And he ragdolls. Okay, now let's say that we wanted him to get damaged if we hit him with our rifle. So go over to your projects and go over to assets. And I want to point out something. If you go into Emerald AI and scripts, and then you have example scripts, and you have all these examples of how you can damage an AI. And one of these is AI by collision. So if you wanted to set your fist up, you have to do a modified version of this. But I'm going to go over that in my next video. But let's say I just wanted the rifle to do damage, like if you just hit him with it, right? The reason that there is no integration for BNG is because you don't need one. They've already got one. So go ahead and click on your rifle and hit pause. And you could use this for cars. You would put this script on cars or anything that you would want to collide with your AI and you want it to do damage. So let's find the correct one again. It even shows you how to do explosions. I mean, this is where you figure out all this code that you need to damage your AI. Collision. So just drop that on your rifle. How much damage you want to do when we hit them with our rifle? We'll say 25. Okay, let's jump in VR and see what happens. All right, I tested it out and 25 was a little bit overkill. So let's just say we want 5 damage, and let's jump in VR and see what happens. Okay, the only last thing for this video that I want to cover and to remind you of is that if you want to have more damage than just be able to damage with location-based damage, if you want to be able to damage him in more places than just his head and his chest, you have to go to the bones. So let's say I wanted to hit him in the leg. Let me unlock this. Say I wanted to hit him in the leg. This is where one of our colliders is at, bottom leg. So you would add component, Emerald AI damageable, which is our BNG script, and that's it. And then you would come back over to your zombie. So we've got left leg. Come back to your zombie and come down to find left leg. I think it was calf, right? Is that where I put it at? Yep, calf. So left leg calf, and this is a multiplier, and it goes backwards too. So if my gun's giving out 25, but I hit him in the toe, so I only want it to be a quarter of that, so 0.25. I think it'll take that, yeah. So now it's only going to do 25% of 25. So what? 7, 8, 8.2 or whatever the heck that is. So it'll actually go negative as well. You could also make it 0. So if I got hit there, it would do 0. I don't know why you would do that, because then you wouldn't even have a damageable, but just so you know, you can go backwards as well. It's a multiplier. And with that, look forward to the following videos. And the following parts to this, I'm going to add Puppet Master to this, and we're going to put boxing in there and make it to where you can actually punch the guy with your hands. Until then, I hope you can get your AI working and I didn't stumble too much through this. If you have a question, you can always hit me up and hopefully I can help you out. Thanks for joining.